Hello, dear brothers and sisters in Christ. I am going to share with you something that has been on my mind a couple of days. And because I've met someone, a girl, I would call her a girl because she's like a child inside. She's just a year younger than me. And she told me that she went to a church, an Orthodox church, and I didn't even know what that was, and asked my pastor. And this is called the East Church, and it's a Greek Orthodox church. And I was asking him if that was a good church, and he says no, it's just like the Catholic Church, so it's not good for her. And I asked them all to pray for her. And the reason why I'm making this video is actually because I had a conversation with her about God, and like he was the father that she never had because her parents died when she was 12. And I understand her that she has that desire to have a father, but she's talking about God as an energy force, and she is going through a 12-step program. And I was asking about that to another church member, not from my church, but from an apostolic church, and she said, well, a 12-step program might be good for her because it's just like the AA. Here they can glorify God and Jesus when they are speaking about the higher powers. And I'm just not sure that this girl is that she even knows who she's praying to. If it's not Jesus, I know who it is. So as we were talking about it, it came to my mind that she does not want to know about hell, that hell exists. But I cannot give her a gospel that does not contain where she might end going. And I'm still praying for her. I hope y'all will be praying for her as well, because I will take her to these church members today from the Apostolic Church, and they have a lot of true doctrines. The only thing is that the man is speaking in tongues, and it just does not go right with my spirit, and I'm still thinking that speaking in tongues is not biblical. It has been biblical at some point, but not in an outer worldly tongue. But either way, they are able to help her to grow and to find Jesus. I know this because they are good people, and my spirit confirms their spirit, just not when he's speaking in tongues. So she wants God to be some kind of Santa Claus, as a lot of Christians want God to be a Santa Claus, but he's not. And this is why I'm making these videos now, as we are soon to enter into that period with you can buy Christmas stuff and all of that. So I went to find some articles on this subject, and the first one is from what's it called? Huffington Post. I don't know about this article, but it seems to be right, so I'll be reading it, and if they're not true on doctrine, I'll say that. So why believe in God but not Santa Claus? The more education a person receives, the more likely that person is to become an atheist. Non-belief also increases with intelligence and income. Residents of more educated countries see religion as less important in their daily lives. Why are highly educated people more likely to be atheists? There are two categories of explanation. Either religious people lack a capacity for skepticism, or they choose to make a blind leap of faith and subscribe to the belief system adopted by their religious community. The Santa Claus analogy. According to a deficient skepticism view, educated people are more capable of critical thought. They subject the claims of religious teachers to more intense skeptical inquiry. This is rather like older children asking themselves how a fat man can navigate a 9-inch chimney flue, magically re-emerging next to the Christmas tree with packages measuring more than a foot in 3 dimensions. Older children connect these absurdities with a pattern of suspicious movements by parents and draw the inevitable conclusion that Santa Claus is a charade perpetrated by parents on children. Younger children are more trusting and less skeptical. Logical, though the rational capacity explanation for atheism is, it is not entirely satisfactory for different reasons. Rational capacity does not always translate into religious skepticism, as noted for the distinguished scientists of past eras who were, for the most part, rapidly religious. Similarly, in religious countries, people may well stop believing in Santa Claus when they grow up, but still hang on to their religious belief system. So it takes more than skepticism to separate people from their religious faith. Why do religious people trash some implausible beliefs but keep others? Perhaps they get something out of the beliefs they keep. Once a person grows up, their parents no longer shower them with gifts during the holiday season, so they have no particular reason to sustain their credulity concerning Santa Claus, although they do pass on the belief to children. If religious beliefs do not yield tangible benefits for adults, they may yield emotional rewards. The emotive aspects of religious belief can persist despite development of improving reasoning ability. Religious beliefs and rituals may continue to help adults feel good. Belief and disbelief are more a matter of feelings than of reason. Why elevate the emotional aspects of religious belief over the cognitive or intellectual ones? One possibility is that religion functions as a form of emotion-focused coping. It provides a defense against life's difficulties and disappointments, and this is actually very true. They hang on to emotions because they were, as children, not given the right kind of love, and the only right kind of love you would get from your parents would be if your parents were saved and taught you by the Bible. Then you would get the right kind of upbringing and the right belief system if they are able to rightly divide the word so far. The emotional hook. If religion is essentially a mechanism for dealing with unpleasant emotions, it is most useful when life is most difficult, as in disease-ravaged, poverty-stricken sub-Saharan Africa, and least useful when the quality of life is good, as is true of godless Europe. In less educated countries, the general standard of living is poor. There's a lot of chronic illness and early death. Infant and child mortality are high. The population is highly vulnerable to droughts, famines, and natural disasters. Most people find it miserably difficult to make a living. Governments are weak and corrupt, and ordinary people get pushed around by gangsters and warlords. Of course, there may also be little religious freedom, so if there are any agnostics, they are forced to keep a low profile. Lacking any objective solution for their many problems, residents of less developed countries turn to religion for answers. The clearest evidence for this is the fact that in poor countries, where the standard of living is low, virtually everyone sees religion as important in their lives. As the standard of living improves, there are fewer unpleasant situations over which people have no control and therefore less of a market for religion. With improving quality of life in developed countries, the importance of religion declines. Looking into the future, this predicts a gradual shrinking of religious belief as the standard of living around the globe continues to improve, fueled by rapid economic development. And I think that was it for this. This might not be a born-again believer that has written that one, but anyhow, I found another article, and this is from On Faith, writing Why God is Not Like Santa Claus. And 3 reasons common atheists' arguments against God fail spectacularly. In recent years, atheism has enjoyed something of a resurgence, I don't know that word, especially with the rise of so-called new atheism. The term was first coined in 2006 to describe the group of media-savvy atheists, men like Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Daniel Dennett, and the late Christopher Hitchens, whose books attacking religion in general and Christianity in particular have sold by the truckload. Yet despite its popularity, Much of contemporary atheism thrives on poor arguments and cheap sound bites, making claims that simply don't stand up to scrutiny. I'll try to read that one again. Yet despite its popularity, much of contemporary atheism thrives on poor arguments and cheap sound bites, making claims that simply don't stand up to scrutiny. Like a cheaply made cardigan, they're full of loose threads that quickly unravel if you tug at them. Let me illustrate with an example from New Atheism's founding father, Richard Dawkins, whose books have sold millions of copies. Dawkins thinks religion isn't merely wrong, but insane, and that those who believe in God are quite literally deluded. Faith in God is as crazy as believing. Well, let's allow Dawkins to speak for himself. A beautiful child, close to me, 6, and the apple of her father's eye, believes that Thomas the Tank Engine really exists. She believes in Father Christmas, and when she grows up, her ambition is to be a tooth fairy. She and her school friends believe the solemn word of respected adults that tooth fairies and Father Christmas really exist. This little girl is of an age to believe whatever you tell her. If you tell her about witches changing princes into frogs, she will believe you. Why a witch? It always says a princess. Doesn't matter. If you tell her that bad children roast forever in hell, she will have nightmares. I have just discovered that without her father's consent, this sweet, trusting, gullible 6-year-old is being sent for weekly instruction to a Roman Catholic nun. As the father of a 3-year-old, I can partly understand the concern about Thomas the Tank Engine, as I have heard enough stories of the lovable locomotive to last me from here to eternity and back again. Still, I digress. It's particularly the comparison that Dawkins makes between God, Santa Claus, and the Tooth Fairy that I find most intriguing. It's a theme he returns to time and time again. Father Christmas and the Tooth Fairy are part of the charm of childhood. So is God. Some of us grow out of all three. I've lost count of how many times I've heard variations of this argument, and perhaps you've faced it too. Well-meaning friends or colleagues politely suggesting that your basic problem is that you just need to grow up. Should Christians be worried? Not really, because whilst God is like Santa Claus may make a great bumper sticker, it's a disastrously bad argument. Let me show you 3 reasons why. Number 1. It's a classic example of something called an ad hominem fallacy. An ad hominem fallacy is when rather than critique an argument, you attack the person. For example, I might say that Dawkins' arguments are wrong because he's a funny-looking fellow, smells strangely of fish, and only writes book on atheism because he is not taken seriously as a scientist anymore. See what I did there? I used ridicule and insult to dismiss the person, not address what he was saying. The main problem with this is it's terribly lazy. Much easier to insult somebody's looks or accuse them of being childish or deluded than to engage with their arguments. Sneering, believing in God is like belief in Santa, doesn't address the question. It just resorts to insult. Number 2. There's the problem for Dawkins that God is taken very seriously as a question among academic philosophers. You can walk into any major university, library, anywhere in the world, head for the philosophy section and find shelf upon shelf of books addressing the God question. I haven't yet found the Santa Claus section at any of the university libraries I visited. Now, this doesn't, of course, prove that God exists, but it does suggest that there's a serious discussion to be had. As the more sensible atheists, philosopher Michael Rouse once marked in a debate with me, Christianity is very serious answer to a very serious question. Atheists need to grapple with the God question, not hide behind lazy sound bites. Number 3. I've long been fascinated how many Christians came to faith in Jesus Christ as adults, not because they were brainwashed into it by their parents. I often ask Christian audiences, who here became a Christian after the age of 15? And frequently more than half the hands shoot up. I then follow up with how many people here came to believe in Santa Claus as adults. The point is obvious. Belief in God is not like belief in Santa Claus on any conceivable level. So if that's the case, why do Richard Dawkins and other atheists insist in making the comparison? I suspect it may be because when you believe something deeply, passionately, energetically, there's often a tendency to grab hold of any arguments that appear to support you, no matter how desperate. After all, there's a chance, isn't there, that your opponents might be right and even entertaining that possibility in something that some atheists aren't willing to permit. Better to do what fundamentalists always do. Put your fingers in your ears and sing loudly. Maybe something cheerful. Santa Claus is coming to town. It was to tackle bad atheist arguments that I wrote The Atheist Who Didn't Exist, or The Terrible Consequences of Bad Arguments, using humor and wit as well as popular philosophy. I take a look at some common atheist arguments and show how they fail spectacularly. My aim is to engage both Christians and atheists, and argues that what's needed in the God debate is not lobbing of sound bites, but discussions of substance, a proper grown-up conversation about the things that matter the most. And I'm thinking argumenting and debating is not in the scriptures. So you cannot debate and argue for God. That's just not the way. So you need to wait for them to open up, and that is a thing that I've learned, just to give a little bite, just a little, just to tell about how much I love God, how much I love to hear the word, how much I love Bible study, and just show them Christ in me. So this might be something that you can use in your daily walk when you meet the atheists, when you meet religious people. So hopefully this has been an inspiration for you. Please pray for this girl. Her name is Sissel. And God bless you all, and see you in the next video. Bye.